Okay, so this is a video that I've been trying to film for like maybe 2 years, maybe even more. It was before Superman had actually come out, before Supergirl came out, just kind of when James Gunn first got told that he was going to be in the DCU. I immediately thought this was a bad move. And I was going to make a video on it, but I wanted to kind of give him a chance because, I mean, I've seen his Guardians of the Galaxy films, and I've seen a lot of his other work, like Super or Brightburn, which I know a lot of people don't like Brightburn. I'll get to that a little bit. For the most part, I would say that James Gunn movies, especially superhero films that James Gunn makes, are pretty good, but when they are his own story, not necessarily when they have established lore. And so when they gave him the DC universe to just play with, he kind of wanted to make it his own thing, but it's not. Like everybody loves Batman, everybody loves Superman. So he starts off with like Peacemaker. He didn't get rid of Ezra Miller's Flash. At least at this point, he has not gone on record and said Ezra Miller as the Flash will no longer be the Flash. That's a horrible idea. I came up with this idea of like, well, if I was gonna go and I was gonna structure the DCU, how would I do it? I kind of want to share that with you. So I ended up going and I ended up writing several different scripts that ended up being over 100 pages long. And I came up with a pretty great universe. And if something like this was actually what the DC universe was like, I guarantee you a lot more people would be excited about it. Also, I'm going to post the link in the description of this entire PDF so you can go and read it. I'm not going to go through the entire thing because it would literally be like maybe 3 hours long. So, the first movie that I would make in my DCU would be The Caped Crusader Lost Faces. It'd be about Batman having taken on a somber case. This would be his 5th year as Batman, and he's not old but not young either, maybe 25. The entire movie, I would not have him out of the Batsuit. So he would never have his face shown. He would just be Batman. I don't know who I would cast as this Batman, but I would say whoever it is, like, don't get me wrong, I do think Jensen Ackles was a great idea, and I think that that is the only person that I want to see in the bat suit from James Gunn, because that's the only way that you're going to get me to go and see his universe. Like, dead ass, I don't care about Batman in James Gunn's universe. There are a lot of people that want Batman to like wear the blue suit and like be more lighthearted. And this idea of Batman, having the brave and the bold, like Grant Morrison is one of the worst fucking Batman writers. Like, Grant Morrison has had a lot of good stories, but I have to be honest, I don't like a lot of his Batman stories. The only one I think I really somewhat like is Batman Incorporated, which the problem with, Grant Morrison's Batman run was that it was just a lot of new things, and some of the new things worked and some of the new things didn't. But when they didn't work, they really didn't work. So I really dislike this idea that he should be wearing a blue suit and that he should be more, lighthearted, because I think then you lean too far into too much comic book territory where it becomes like having a bat credit card and bat nipples and all this other bullshit. Like, that would kill Batman. It just would. I know a lot of DC fans like that. I'm a DC fan. I like DC more than I like Marvel. That being said, I would not go and see it. And the only way I would go and see it with a famous person in it is Jensen Ackles. And that's just because I like the actor. And I actually really liked it when I saw like a photoshopped picture or maybe AI picture of him. And it was like, wow, that actually, I didn't think that would be good, but then I saw it. And also he's done, Under the Red Hood, Jason Todd, and he voiced Batman in I think The Long Halloween. I think I watched that one, and he did a really good job. So he kind of has, Batman DNA in him already. He's been doing it for a while. So I would actually like that fan casting. I've seen a lot of people say Glenn Powell or the guy who plays Jack Reacher. Those are horrible. Those are horrible. I hate those. when they had the Batman come out, I was one of those people that was like, oh yeah, no, merge him into James Gunn's DC universe. But now I'm just like, I don't want that to happen because I feel like they'll ruin him. So I'd rather just have Matt Reeves do his own thing with it. So we'd meet Harvey Dent and we'd see his life, and it would just be perfect. He'd be becoming a model citizen and maybe DA, perhaps, or maybe he's still a lower ranking lawyer, but he'd be working closely with Gordon, and we'd be able to see that they both have families, they both have loving wives, loving kids. They're good people. And so, all the while that this is happening, Batman is going to come across murders, and they're going to be mutilated victims with their faces cut off and basically dumped in random places. Kind of similar to when we find the bodies in the Arkham games. So these people don't really have anything in common other than they're forgettable or homeless, meaning they don't really have anyone in their life who will miss them. And so each body he finds is dumped, not placed, just forgotten about, like failures. And the person who's doing this wants things to be perfect. Batman can see this, and he goes to Gordon, who isn't actually on the best terms with Batman at this point. Even though it's been about 5 years within their relationship, I would actually have it to where Batman and Gordon are having kind of a shaky relationship. And I would kind of have it be a distant relationship as well. Like the first time that we see Batman interact with Gordon, I wouldn't have them having a face to face. I would have Batman calling Gordon. However, Gordon is more reluctant with the information. And it's because I would say Batman is blackmailing Gordon because Gordon and Bullock kept mafia blood money. And so that is kind of like at the core of their relationship. Batman is blackmailing Gordon, and because of this, they're not on the best of terms. And I wouldn't just have them be all right from the beginning. I kind of think that can work, and it did work in the Matt Reeves Batman, but I wouldn't go in that direction because I want a lot of the characters to kind of have a lot of conflict with each other. That way, when they grow, it feels that much more better. Like when I say better, I think that when you have characters have a lot of conflict, when they grow, it becomes like, wow, they started off from this person, then they ended as this person. One person you could look at is like Walter White in Breaking Bad. He starts off like a reasonably good guy. Yes, he's a little bit, egocentric at the beginning, but he only becomes more egocentric and more prideful and more spiteful. And that's kind of like a progression that you don't see a lot, especially in superhero films, and that's the basis of my universe. So I'd have Gordon help him, but I would also make it be where he doesn't really help him that much because the case is cold. And when Batman informs Gordon about the six, that's when, detective work ensues. And I would have this Batman be more of a smarter Batman. I know that that's kind of Matt Reeves' thing, but I do think that that is the core of Batman. And when you make him less smart, he kind of just becomes actiony. He kind of just becomes, you don't need a actiony Batman when you have an actiony Superman, and Superman's always going to be actiony. Not saying that this Batman won't kick ass, but I am saying that there will be a lot more, like he'll be more scaled. I'd have Batman talking with Alfred. You hear Alfred's voice, but you never actually see him. And then Gordon actually shows up at this place where Batman has found this body, and they'll end up like going and investigating further. And then in this area, Batman and Gordon will find a wrapper, and it's like a hard candy wrapper, almost like Doctor Office, no brand. Batman analyzed the compound, and he'd find like laces of fentanyl or some type of high potent drug in it. Since he's like inspecting it, he'll like break it apart and see that they're not actually very professionally made. They're brittle, they're easy to break, and if you know anything about pharmacy, like pills and stuff, basically the more brittle that a pill is more likely a sign that it is less highly manufactured and less professionally manufactured, and actually a lower cost product, meaning it's a cheaper product. And so Batman would be able to figure this out because he already knows who has the cheapest drugs on the planet. Where he'd go next is Oswald Cobblepot. Now, this image right here is actually something that I put together a long, long time ago when I was trying to do like a fan Batman comic. And the idea was that the Penguin maybe had his nose or face ripped into by a dog, so he wears a prosthetic nose and like almost like the disguise sunglasses and the big nose, and like he has just dog fur coats. Like he finds dogs and he just skins them and he uses it as like material to make coats out of. And I'd imagine that he's like actually lanky and also kind of hunched. And this is because Oswald Cobblepot is kind of like one of the drug kingpins in Gotham. And when he shows up, it's not going to be like a grand scene like in Matt Reeves' Batman where he like fights everyone to get in. It's just going to be he shows up like in his den behind him. And like we see from the conversation that Penguin actually doesn't fear Batman like at all. In fact, he kind of acts arrogant and untouchable, and Batman kind of casually talks to him. He kind of says, I want the client list. And Oswald will obviously ask, what's in it for him? Batman answers, the man who made your parents disappear. Oswald is intrigued and ends up giving him a little bit of information on his clients list. And this kind of shows that like Oswald has no loyalties, and he also is so arrogant that he can kind of like, well, look at all these crimes that I can do, and feels like Batman can do really nothing about it. But also you see that he is a person that is deeply longing to his family, and we don't know what happened to them. They just disappeared, right? Not at this point anyway. So when Oswald gives that up, Batman will find that most of the large shipments of fentanyl are getting sent to warehouses except one. An order of 5 boxes that actually takes him to a warehouse. And this is the warehouse that makes the candies. It isn't abandoned, merely it seems their process has been put on hold. Someone knew he was coming. That's when he stumbled upon bandages and face wrappings similar to the ones that were on the victim. Unfortunately, they're clean, no blood or extra fluids. They weren't used to bandage up wounds. What could this mean? He goes on his Intel comp device and narrows down the payments of these candies down to 3 different places, and it ends up being in Chinatown. He'd find a salon, and in the salon there'd be Professor Pig wearing a reflective pink pig mask. They'd have a confrontation to which Professor Pig is taken down and finished. But there's one problem. He didn't murder the 6th victim. Every other victim was forgettable or homeless, and the last one was homeless. But this theory falls apart because the last victim was an exchange student. They had no records in America because they weren't from here, but they did have people waiting for them. Batman asked Professor Pig what exactly he wanted out of the victims. He answers, I don't create victims. I create image and prodigy. The failures, they only happen because that man tricked me. What man? Batman asks, but Pig, this serial killer, is terrified to answer. Now, I'd actually have Professor Pig also be kind of like in the Arkham games, where he has a scarred face and like, I'd make him overweight and maybe like too much plastic surgeries have happened on him, but I wouldn't make him look like he's overly perfect. I would actually make his Professor Pig mask actually a thing hiding his face. Batman, still in his lab, uncovers the whole base surrounded by patients with messed up faces. They're basically screwed up in the brain, and this professor guy ruined tens of lives and ends up getting arrested. Batman returns to Cobblepot and throws down the pig mask, showing him. Cobblepot watching the news and the professor being arrested, he asks, "So what exactly did you bring me? A guy that fucks up people's faces? My parents are in Tuscany still." Batman answers, "I said I'd bring you the man who made your parents disappear. There he is." Looking down, Penguin sees his own reflection. Enraged, Cobblepot stands to see no one's there anymore. His doors get kicked down and his drug operation is found, while Batman thinks to himself, what could this mean? Alfred tells him to turn in for the night, but still with 4 hours left, he stays out. That's when he remembers the wrappings at the warehouse. The same wrappings used on the victims. One of the victims killed the sixth person. The movie ends, actually, without Batman getting to know who killed this victim. Batman will get a call to a robbery, and everything will have taken place in one night, but he won't actually be able to figure out this crime, and that's how it ends. In the end, I would portray Batman more calm, meaningfully stoic, almost silent. I wouldn't have him talk that much. That makes him much more menacing because you don't actually know him. And I kind of want to end the film without you fully knowing who this Batman is. So you wouldn't get to see his face, you wouldn't get to know him, and that's how the first movie would end. So this was just the first part of a series that I'm going to be doing. If I added any more, it would be entirely too long. So the next video is going to revolve around Superman in a story I called Superman Mongols Rule. It's kind of a little bit based off of the comic, but also with some liberties taken here and there. It's going to delve into each character's story specifically, and then we're going to have like a Justice League story and many other stories, because I've already wrote several stories. But if you want to look at the PDF where I have some of the other stories included, I'm going to post it in the description below. Of course, it's not a, crisp, fully fledged out, edited piece. So there are some spelling mistakes here and there. I tried to fix what I could, but if I did it like a normal book or a normal script, I would have taken ages. Alright, that's going to be the end of this video. If you want to see any more, you can like and subscribe. Peace out.